Welcome to the January 10th JA Company Program Speaker Series with Kellie Wicklund of the Maternal Wellness Center. I'm Joy Isabelle, the Business Development Manager of Junior Achievement of Southeastern Pennsylvania. Welcome, Kellie.
Hi, Joy. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be invited to speak tonight about something I'm incredibly passionate about.
Well, awesome. We're really glad to have you here, and I'd love it if you'd be willing to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the Maternal Wellness Center.
Sure. I was a clinician first. Not sure exactly what I was going to specialize in after I finished grad school. But I had two children, and I quickly realized I was pretty fascinated with the transition into motherhood. I started a private practice offering therapy services for maternal mental health, and then grew that practice while my children grew up. And so I have a 16-year-old practice and a 16-year-old. Um, and now I'm the owner and founder and clinical director of the Maternal Wellness Center. It was an organization I was part of the beginning of my career. It was a nonprofit at the time, and then it went under during a recession. But the domain name was something I was able to acquire, and so I reinvigorated the brand and the business 3 years ago, and turned my practice into the company that we now know today.
That's really cool. You mentioned that you didn't necessarily know when you were younger that this is the direction you'd end up. Can you speak a little bit more about that? What did you want to do when you were in high school?
Interestingly, in high school, I loved sociology. And I then in college became very interested in psychology. Um, and then went on to get my master's in counseling. And nowhere along the way did I take a business course. And it's really surprising to me now to look back at a master's in counseling program and realize there was not one business course in it. So I certainly should have co-majored. But hindsight is 2020. So while I didn't have junior achievement, I wish I did. I would have realized probably at a much earlier age how entrepreneurial I naturally am.
Mm.
Um, I've had to catch up the hard way.
Well, as you know, our students have been working really hard in the company program to brainstorm their ideas together in their companies, and they have decided on their service or product they're going to sell, and they're about to launch their venture. And because you launched a venture a few years back, it felt like a natural fit to have you come in and share maybe a little bit about your experience launching. And it sounds like too, you didn't necessarily go to school for that. And so I'd love to hear your story of how you got to where you are.
Sure. No, I didn't imagine when I started a private practice that I would have a 14 staff center at this point. I never would have dreamed that. I never saw that in my future. And I don't think it was because I didn't dream big. I
Mm.
just never imagined that would be what I would want, or that would be within reach. But what basically happened was I worked really, really hard to grow a private practice. A private practice takes a lot of hitting the pavement, a lot of networking, a lot of just grinding it out, hours and hours of getting to know people, letting people know what you can do, waiting for the phone to ring. And then it did, and it just kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And incredibly, I got this incredibly great problem, which was I had too much work to
Mm.
manage myself. And so I realized at that point it was at the sort of grow or die phase of a business, because especially a referral based business like mental health is, you have to keep getting a steady stream of referrals, and they will start to dry up if you have to tell people no. So it was really becoming difficult to have to turn so many people away, and I would always place them with another clinician, but I had worked really, really hard for that work. And so it became clear that I needed to scale, and I needed to scale quickly, because the work just kept coming. So I very quickly got a team of people together, a really good accountant, a really good lawyer who filed the LLC, a business coach who helped me sort of talk through the scaling and think through the scaling. My husband's also involved in minority entrepreneurship. He's actually run a youth program before at the Enterprise Center. So he was a handy coach to have on the side. And over a few months, I had an employee, and then I had 2 employees, and now I have 14 employees. So it was rough. It was bumpy. It was exciting. It was terrifying. I'm not a good sleeper to begin with. Terrible time sleeping. But it was also really thrilling, and it felt like the right thing to do. And now, 3 years later, in hindsight, it absolutely was the right thing to do. So all the students out there with these ideas, they're dreaming of getting launched and really operationalizing and putting feet to them. It is really both thrilling and terrifying. But
It is. And thank you for sharing that story of how you launched your business and how you could just tell from how much you had already grown your practice that it was really time to continue that growth and bring on more people. And I wonder if in that process, if you had some words of advice that you could share with the students as they're starting to get ready to launch their own company.
yeah, it's so much work. But it's really fantastic, if to be your own boss, and to have, your own company is your own vision. It's your own creative endeavor, and I love that. I could probably never work for someone else again. I've been just spoiled, but it is a lot of work. I mean, when you work for yourself, there's no safety net, really. You are your own safety net. And, especially in this time of, people really switching jobs, there had been some job market shrinkage through the pandemic. It was kind of, I realized for myself that instead of worrying about another company and how they were going to do, I could determine my own fate by working really hard. And so it actually is kind of, frightening as it can be, that the work of launch, the work of scale, the work of getting product out and getting for our business, it's really about quality of service and the value of our brand, what people trust, what they believe about us when they call us. It's worth it's worth the hustle. It really is. And it's a hustle. I mean, I work on my business every single day. I put a post up on Instagram every day, even on vacation, even on Christmas. I'm always thinking about it. And the flip side of that is I believe more in what I can accomplish than trusting someone else with my future.
Well, thank you for that, sharing that advice with the students. And it sounds like in the growing of your business and the launching of it, you had to manage multiple priorities, and it sounds like you still do. And so, can you give us some insight? How do you do that? How do you manage all of those different priorities? And what often gets your priority attention?
That's a great question. We have to keep the phone ringing. So, priority number one for me is quality of service. My clinicians are well trained. They can call me any time of day with clinical questions. We really prioritize patient care. We are taking care of vulnerable population of moms, and frequently moms with babies and families who are going through difficult times. So the experience and the safety of our patients is huge. And then my next priority has to be my staff. My staff can't do a good job being a clinician, taking care of vulnerable people if they're not okay themselves. So I think all the time about not just the training and the knowledge and the expertise of my staff, but of our culture too at the Maternal Wellness Center, because we're mental health providers, so we have to be healthy as a center ourselves, and we have to be healthy as people ourselves. And so that is the layer of sort of healing for maintaining health, so we can be healers in our center. So I'm frequently thinking about morale and how's everyone doing, making sure I'm connected with my staff, making sure it feels safe as a community. Um, for all of us, we have a lot of diversity on our staff, making sure everyone feels safe and cared for and valued, and is not bored, but is not overworking either. So I think frequently about my patients and my staff. They're always sort of, I say I toggle between those two, my patients and my staff, and I do think about marketing. I mean, there's some just nuts and bolts things I have to, do ads and make phone calls. And I have an amazing executive director now who handles a lot of the things that were piling up on my desk. I think that's been the learning curve of scale. Is I had to hire really great people before we even had the volume of patients, so we were ready for more growth. So I would say the priorities, those two are always clear, but then, we also have to think about paying the bills and keeping the lights on, and when the roof repair is going to happen at the office. The business now is also a real estate venture for me. I own the building that we're in, which is, it comes with its own new set of of priorities. So I have someone who's incredible that helps manage the building as well. So there's usually something on my mind. But I'm a clinician first, and I still see my own patients. And for me, that wasn't exactly what I was certain was going to happen. In fact, with my business coach and with my accountant, we kind of thought that I was going to run the day to day. And as I realized that just meant taking me further away from the piece I love, which is being a clinician and being a supervisor, that I wasn't going to be happy. So we've really kind of changed gears to keep me with my own patient load and supervising my staff and clinicians. And that so far is how I'm able to be happy and fulfilled in the role. So, so there's some learning along the way, some changing directions that happened.
It sounds like along the way you were able to find a little bit of a balance to make sure that you, just like your staff, enjoys what they're doing, that you also, and keeping your clients are getting to do that, as well as doing all the day-to-day operational, management.
Yeah.
You mentioned that for your staff, especially because you're in the mental health, field, that you want them to feel renewed and ready to be able to serve, your clients. How do you do that
Right.
for yourself? Because you're now, as the boss, you have a staff that you're managing, you have your clients coming in, and obviously mental health is really important to everybody that's on the team.
Right. Great question. Yes. How do the therapists take care of themselves? I really have a pretty balanced work day. I work about 7 or 8 hours a day. I could not have done that with tiny kids, but I can do that now with teenagers. Um, I typically work for about 5 or 10 minutes on a weekend day, and then I'm done. I put the post up or whatever, but that's it. So I really try to keep work within work hours. Um, it can't always happen, especially in this field where there's things that do happen outside of business hours that are important. I do have to respond to them. But I, for the most part, have a great family life balance. Lots of friends in my pod. The pandemic, I saw I'm incredibly social. I'm always seeing friends and hanging out with people and exercising. So I can't complain about my quality of life. I'm really having a good time having a life and being a boss. So
That's awesome that you're able to not only find that balance, but also prioritizing that part of your life, the work-life
yeah.
balance. It's so important, and I'm sure it can get really difficult when you are launching that venture because there's so much energy that's going towards this new project and getting it off the ground. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, actually, Joy, that there are times where it's really heavy, intense hours. And then you build things and put them in place, building process, building structure and scaffold, and then it's there. And so then sometimes the work can back off a little bit. So I think for the students who are thinking about, oh my gosh, there's times thinking about this business that it wouldn't feel sustainable, but it doesn't go on like that
Mm,
indefinitely. And if it is going on like that, I think there's something that's not resourced right.
mm.
There's something that's not balanced right, and it needs to be changed anyway, because no one should spend their life just working. That's not a life. So
No.
yeah, it's really easy. I think entrepreneurs can work too much. I think it certainly can become too big a part of identity, and it's easy because there's generally a passion there to begin with. So I do like to read about maternal mental health and wellness. I do read about that on my free time. It's really easy to slide into the emails and start working. But I this job can't be done unless I'm well too. So
Mhm.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, the patients know it if you're not taking good care of yourself, and so I deserve that, and my patients deserve that, and so do my staff. So that just kind of keeps it pretty clear for me that I have to be okay, um, for everybody, my family especially. So
And it sounds like the culture of of your organization is really important, along with the work-life balance. As how can students make sure that their thoughts and ideas are heard, that they are creating safe spaces for each other to show up and be on a team together as they are, having all these different strengths as they're coming together to create and launch this business,
hmm
especially in a virtual environment, I'll add.
yeah, we do have a physical space, so we're certainly all much more virtual than we were before. But I think safety in culture at a workplace is huge. And I have taken a lot from Brene Brown and her leadership ideas. She really talks about being transparent and being vulnerable. And that is a very natural fit for me. I am someone who really will tell you what I think I did well or terrible. Um, I think that's very relevant when it comes to supervising my staff clinically because I'm able to say, when I feel like I made a clinical misread or misstep and what the implication of that was, and we can talk that through. And then my staff can do the same thing. So we have this culture where it's already okay to say what you saw a weakness as, and then we course correct. We're like, what would we do different next time? How would we think this through different next time? And I absolutely do not lead from a place of shame. It's always about like encouragement and praise and bringing out the best in people and playing to their strengths and learning. I mean, we're constantly learning, um, you keep learning until the day you die. So I think creating a culture that feels fun and safe and warm, and hospitable is huge. And I don't know that, oh, when I hear about people's workplaces all the time, there's so many that are dysfunctional and they really don't pull that off. And I think frequently it's coming top down. The people at the bottom get blamed, but it comes down from the top. And so I've done a lot of thinking about that and reading very quickly, trying to read up on leadership. And I realized I intuitively know more about leadership than I would have guessed, which was a nice surprise. So, and at the heart of it is we create flexible, high paying or well paying jobs for women who want a life, which is what our aim is. And I'm as excited about maternal mental health as I am about job creation for moms, as clinicians and as staff. So I think that part of it's really fun. And so we keep a very family friendly environment, because we all need it. So it's really nice, and I needed to. So I think my staff, our retention rate for staff and clinicians is incredibly high. It's in the 90%. And I think it's because we really value people, pay them well, and they have flexibility and safety. And so I think all of those things are really, really important when your students get to the place, which they will when they hire people to help implement their ideas someday. Um, if they remember that and keep that in mind, especially for families, that's huge. That's for a mom, that is such high value, and a dad too.
What a great piece of advice. And really caring for your staff and creating that, like you said, family first, but also fun, and also leading with some positive reinforcement, instead of pointing out what people did wrong and staying on that, and being shamey.
Yeah, you get a lot more. I think carrots are much more effective than sticks. I really do. And
Yeah.
I not that you cannot talk about hard things. You have to sometimes with staff, obviously. But I think people really value just directness, and especially when they know you care. It goes a long way. You can be honest and direct with people if they feel cared for. Um,
Mm.
you know.
Oh, definitely. So we're at the part of our interview where I just want to ask the students that if you have any questions, please just raise your hand, and we will call on you, and then we'll continue with some more questions while we wait for the students. So, Kellie, you had also mentioned when you were talking about your leadership style and that culture is important. It sounded like the students, regardless if they were in a title leadership position, that they still could be leading in their teams. They break out into different teams with sales and marketing and operations. And it sounds like there's an opportunity even within those teams to bring up what you just shared about creating those environments as a whole, and as their individual teams as they're working together.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who were some of the key mentors in your career?
I've had some incredible supervisors along the way. Some I got as part of my master's degree training, just on the job at internships, or some incredible professors at Eastern University. But I've also paid privately for supervision with incredible people. And I always seek out really good trainings at I'm mostly into psychodynamic therapy, so I seek out the people who I think are telling the truth and getting to the heart of the issues, and I just see if I can hang out with them, or I read everything they've written, or I try to get in their supervision groups. When as a therapist, the highest value thing we can do is do our own therapy, and I have spent 12 years with an incredible therapist. And so, I love Brene Brown. I mean, like, who doesn't?
I do.
Yeah. And I'm a fangirl for Nancy McWilliams, who's just an incredible thinker in our field. And so, yeah, I think they've not been like the big giant personalities you might know, but more my supervisors and that I've known along the way. But in my field, not a lot of, there's frequently people start practices, which is amazing, but not everyone has the interest to scale it to what I've scaled it to. So when I really looked around for some examples of who's doing this, there wasn't many people to reach out to be honest. So it felt a little more lonely as the growth happened. And so we're just, I guess, we're writing our own rule book as we go.
That's exciting.
Yeah, right. Thrilling, fun, creative, scary sometimes, but yeah.
Well, Kellie, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that you wish someone had told you about work while you were in high school?
It's so many hours of your life. So you have to really like it. I think to follow your passion. Even if no one believes in it or thinks it sounds sane or reasonable, I mean, I think following your passion, following your intuition, following your heart, that will get you really, really far. It's incredible how far that will take you with some hard work. And I really think most ideas can be operationalized, but it's a grind. And so I think probably when I was a kid, if someone was like, yeah, adulthood's a lot of work, you're like, cool, thanks for telling me. I can't wait to grow up. That it's really important to love what you do. It's really critical that there's natural passion there because it's so much time. It's not our whole life, but it's a chunk of ours. So you have to love it. And it's amazing to be your own boss. I wish someone had, I wish I'd been in junior achievement. We had people like you talking to me. I think I would have realized this 25 years ago. So the opportunity for your students to be thinking about these things and growing their dreams is phenomenal. And believing in themselves. There's going to be people in their life who say, go, pick a safer path or whatever. But I think if there's passion there, that there's a lot of fuel in that. So
What a great piece of advice to end on. Thank you so much, Kellie. It was wonderful speaking with you this evening and hearing a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and launching your venture. Thank you, students, for joining us. And the next interview will be on January 31st, and the topic of that will be sales.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Joy. Thanks, Junior Achievement. So happy you exist. And good luck, students, on your projects. Have a great rest of your night. And thanks for having me. Have me back if you ever want to. I would gladly sign up again.
Oh, we definitely will. Thank you,
Awesome.
Kellie.
Take care. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.